Welcome to Gamereactor TV. We are right outside of London at EA to check out the new Medal of Honor Airborne.
Well, when we built the game, we knew we wanted to concentrate on the airborne forces, and what that meant was that you would start every level jumping out of a C-47 flying over Fortress Europe. As innovative as that feature is, it really drove all the other innovations in the game, and the primary one really is the idea of open FPS combat, the idea that there is no starting point to the level. You choose where to start, and once you're in the level, you can literally go anywhere. So the idea of sort of old school linear levels with a distinct start point and a distinct end point, and kind of no branching in between, has gone out the door with this product, and instead, you're dropping into a combat zone and you choose where to go. You literally can go anywhere in the combat space. All of the levels are based on the major airborne operations of World War II. You're going to jump in every single operation that took place during World War II. So we start with Operation Husky, which is the Allied invasion of Sicily. Following that, we do Operation Avalanche, which took place outside of Salerno, Italy. And then we just continue to move closer and closer sort of to the heart of Germany. So we do Operation Neptune, which most people kind of know peripherally as the airborne part of Overlord, which was the beach invasion in Normandy. Then Operation Market Garden, and then Operation Varsity, which was literally the jump across the Rhine and into Germany. Basically, first-person shooters have always been designed in a linear fashion, right? So we're dealing with a lot of designers, many of whom have been working in the industry for 10 years, who have this entrenched dogma about starting a level in a specific space, moving the player from one tableau to the next. And we really had to jettison, we had to get rid of all of that entrenched dogma for this game. So designers couldn't start thinking about scripting the AI to do a certain thing or scripting a certain moment to happen. Instead, what we've built is a bunch of systems which are designed to deliver scripted feeling moments, but based solely on the input of the player. So you get guys, still jumping out of windows when you pitch a grenade into a building. That would have been scripted in the old school. Now it can happen anytime, any place, based solely on the player action. You get battle lines forming. We would have had to script all that stuff and kind of hard-code it and animate it to happen in a specific area. Now it happens 100% dynamically, based on where the player goes and based on the relative strength of the different AI opposing forces. Getting rid of all that dogma and creating a system in which all of our designers were embracing the idea that the battle's not going to start in one space. It can start over there, it can start back there, it can start from the sky. It doesn't matter, and it's got to play equally well from all those different locations is really the big breakthrough that we drove, and that getting rid of that past dogma was one of the biggest challenges.
Could you tell us about the characters in the game and how they interact in the multiplayer mode?
In terms of characters, the allied character that you play is named Boyd Travers, and he's kind of a classic Medal of Honor or airborne character, right? These guys were very well trained. They're the kinds of guys who would volunteer for an extra $50 a month to strap 50 pounds of gear to their back, jump out of an airplane in the dead of night behind enemy lines with no avenue of retreat. And they were very well trained, but they were also some of the bravest and most tenacious of all the soldiers that fought during the Allied parts of World War II. Different characters in multiplayer. Obviously, you play both Axis and Allies, so you can play not only Italian black shirts and fascists, but you can play German forces as well in the multiplayer pieces. So the weapon customization feature it's based on the idea that not every weapon in World War II was the same as every other weapon. Soldiers had a wide variety of field modifications and upgrades that they could apply to their weapons, and so the basic idea behind it is that we're not going to fundamentally change what the weapon does, but what we're going to do is make the weapon a lot better at what it does. So the Thompson, for example, is sort of a lead hose. It's a sort of a squirrely and somewhat inaccurate weapon that's just basically focused on throwing a ton of lead into the air. And as you get upgrades for it, it basically makes it better at that job. The first upgrade you get is a forward pistol grip, which stabilizes the weapon really well. Then you get what's called a cuts compensator, which ejects the muzzle gases upward, which compensates for the normal muzzle rise you get when you ride the trigger on a Thompson. So through the first two upgrades, it becomes a much more stable weapon and gives you the ability basically to fire a lot more bullets. The way you earn upgrades in the game is the more you use a weapon, the more proficient you become. So you get commendations for weapon based on your proficiency, and as you earn those commendations, you earn the upgrades along with them.
Could you tell us about the work of ensuring historical detail in the game?
So we have a dedicated military consultant and historical consultant on this game. His name is Marty Morgan. He's the lead research historian for the National World War II Museum in Louisiana in New Orleans. He's an authority on the Airborne, has written books on the Airborne, and basically has been able to tell us absolutely. He's also a weapons expert, so it's really from him that we get all our data about weapon authenticity, about the authenticity of the airborne experience, and kind of what the soldiers actually went to. He's a really critical part of the team. Beyond that, the other thing we do is literally every weapon that we use in the game, we go out and fire that weapon so that we know exactly what the firing characteristics are. We record the audio for that weapon so that when the player fires a Garand in the game, he's hearing a Garand that we actually went out and fired. He's playing with the characteristics of the weapon that we've discovered by our interactions with that weapon. And that doesn't apply just to the weapons, it applies to bigger things like the tanks and even to the C-47. So C-47, the plane you jump out of in the game, we actually, Marty bought a C-47 during the course of this production, bought it for the museum, and he arranged for us to fly in it, to record all the audio in it, and get every sound from the sound of the boots of the soldiers on the floor of the C-47 to the sound of the engines to the sound of it taking off, and even the sound of it being destroyed.
And get a personal feeling of jumping out of the game too, perhaps.
That's right. Although I have not jumped personally, some people on the team have actually jumped.
What is ECAP?
ECAP is a system that we use to create more human emotion on the faces of the characters. Basically, there's sort of two systems at work. One is a procedural awareness system, which causes all the NPCs in the game to sort of have an emotional state, but also be aware of their surroundings. So, if they're in a defensive posture, they'll automatically go into a posture like this, but they'll still glance around at the different parts of the environment that are relevant to them, whether it's an ally dying or whether it's the appearance of the player. The other thing that we do is called ECAP, which is a system of blending textures on the faces of characters to create the appearance of wrinkles and areas of tension in the face. Well, so it's a multi-platform game, and that's been our focus. I think the big differences are, there's a few differences between the PC and the console versions that are based on what the PC can do effectively. For example, we're going to let PC users host dedicated servers, which is, I think, really important to your multiplayer community. And then, the 6-axis controller is different from the Xbox 360 controller because it has a gyro in it, and so we're leaning into that in order to deliver good parachuting and peeking and leaning and effective cover use. And then the 360 controller has the rumble pack in it, obviously. And so we're leaning into the rumble pack to deliver just a more visceral, on-the-ground experience, but also give key feedback to the player, whether it's the appearance of a tank just outside the building that you're in, or taking a hit from an enemy bullet, or even a big thumping weapon like a MG42 firing.
Do you feel that Medal of Honor Airborne is sort of just another game in the franchise?
No, Medal of Honor Airborne is, we set out to make the definitive Medal of Honor and the definitive World War II game. So we're very, very proud of the product, and we think it's a high watermark for the franchise.
Thanks for your time then.